Hi. My name is Sophie Woods. I'm going to be presenting Tuning In Music as a Supportive Backdrop for Emotional Processing on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and beyond. Right, let's jump into it. So before we start, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. So we're specifically going to be talking about the use of music on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the instance of the Robert F. Kennedy assassination. So the clip that we're watching and analyzing is the music that was used to process that. We're also going to be talking about mental health, which can be a challenging topic. I work in psychiatric music therapy. So if you need to do anything for yourself, you need to get up and take a walk, if you need to take a drink of water, if you just need a moment to take a few deep breaths, please do whatever you need for yourself. All right. So I'm Sophie. It's nice to meet you. I'm here from Brooklyn, New York. My parents actually live in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. So, you know, easy enough to come see the family and be here. And I think the last time I was on St. Vincent campus, I was about 15 and I was here for Steelers training camp. So, yeah, so St. Vincent is a beautiful campus. I'm really happy to be back. So to give you a little bit of background about myself, and I'm going to get a little bit more into my work a little later, I have my bachelor's and my master's degrees in music therapy from Molloy College, now Molloy University in Rockville Center, New York. It was funny because I got my bachelor's at Molloy College and then they changed to Molloy University, so I have two diplomas from the same school with two different names. I'm a board certified music therapist, which is a national board certification, and I'm a licensed creative arts therapist, which only New York State has that, but we're hoping to expand. Pennsylvania just got its very own music therapy license. So let's hear it for Pennsylvania. Yeah, all right. And are there any other music therapists, art therapists? No way! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I'm on state task force helping with licensure. So.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, if and when we move to Pittsburgh, I'll be, okay, cool. I'm a music psychotherapist at Kings County Hospital. We'll talk a little bit more about what music psychotherapy is a little bit later. I work in their partial hospitalization program at Kings County, which is a program that is a step down from inpatient hospitalization. So our patients come in for 6 hours every day. They have group therapy from a team of strictly creative arts therapists, which is pretty amazing. We also have social workers, psychiatrists on the team with us, which is awesome. And then I'm in private practice in Brooklyn, New York as well, where I see a variety of patients, mostly adults and some kids. And I'm starting my PhD in clinical psychology this fall, which I'm very excited about. So we're going to be talking about the music used on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood through a music therapy lens. So even though Fred Rogers is not a music therapist, even though Johnny Costa is not a music therapist, they think like music therapists. And it is so evident throughout the entire show and how mood is reflected in music. So I want to take a good amount of time to describe what music therapy is, how music therapists work, so you can kind of understand just how unbelievable it is that they had this innate ability to almost act as music therapists who had no music therapy training. So what is music therapy? The American Music Therapy Association defines music therapy as the clinical and evidence-based use of music interventions to accomplish individualized goals within a therapeutic relationship by a credentialed professional who has completed an approved music therapy program. Music therapy interventions can address a variety of healthcare and educational goals. So I'd like to talk about my experience as a music psychotherapist. So like I said, I currently work at Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn in their partial hospitalization program. I am also in private practice where I see a variety of different patients. So let's start at the beginning. How did I get into this work? Because it's still not a super common profession. Should be. I think we should have way more music therapists in the world, but we just don't quite yet. So I was having a great time. I was thinking about what I wanted to do when college rolled around. I was having a good time gigging. I was playing with a band. I wasn't quite sure I wanted to be a music educator. My mom is a brilliant art educator, and I saw how hard she worked, and I also saw the budget cuts and how the arts are usually the first thing to go in school districts, and I'm thinking, I don't know if that's going to be for me, so I just don't know what I want to do with music. Then 2011 rolls around, and show of hands, does anyone remember the attack on Congresswoman Gabby Giffords in Tucson, Arizona? Yeah. So for those of you who are not familiar with that, the Congresswoman is doing a community outreach event in a grocery store parking lot because all constituents have to go get groceries. Brilliant idea, I love it. Someone unfortunately makes an attempt on her life. She sustains a gunshot to the left hemisphere of her brain, where speech and language lives in our brain. She's airlifted to a hospital, and her family makes the heroic decision to record, to videotape her progress. And these videos are showed on television. I'm watching them, and they're showing Congresswoman Giffords in the hospital, and she's working with a speech therapist. And she just hits that plateau, not being able to make any more progress. And at that point they said, we know what to do, we're bringing a music therapist in. And I'm going, what's a music therapist? Oh my God, I think this sounds amazing. Oh my God, I'm so excited. They show this music therapist who comes in, and because, as Oliver Sacks discovered, if you have a damaged left hemisphere of your brain, lots of words, sorry, a damaged left hemisphere of the brain where speech and language lives, music can help create a new speech and language center in the right hemisphere. And she is able to sing every word she cannot say in speech therapy along with all of these other words. And she is also reaching these goals of being able to emotionally process what's going on. Incredible for someone who could not talk just days or hours before. So I decided to do this. I speak with some other music therapists. I had a really wonderful opportunity to shadow a brilliant music therapist, Corey Antonacci at UPMC. Decided that what she did in childhood oncology was probably not going to be for me, but ended up finding my passion working in psychiatry. So I'm a senior getting my bachelor's degree in music therapy, and I get an email from the head of our department, and she goes, Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan is looking for interns, and I think you'd be a good fit. Music nerd that I am, the first thing I know about Bellevue Hospital is that two brilliant bass players, Charles Mingus and Jaco Pastorius, have been patients there. So I'm like, I think I like Bellevue already. Okay. Second, I know that it is one of the most intimidating institutions in the United States. I decide to take a risk, and I go and I work at Bellevue. But all throughout my training, our professors are talking about, you've got to match mood with music. You've got to match emotion with music. That is the point of being a music therapist. And that's a big ask. It sounds pretty easy, but how do you do that? I started watching clips from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood because I grew up on the show. And those moments that you see on the show where it becomes somber and it shifts into a minor key, or that da-da-da-da-da-da at the beginning that creates that sense of anticipation. What are we gonna do today? That is all stuff that we can learn from as music therapists. So in my work at Bellevue, I end up getting a job there. I work at Bellevue for several years. In my work there, I'm realizing I'm not working with children, but I'm doing a lot of inner child healing. These are people at their most vulnerable. And it is my job to heal the current, most mature adult self through music, as well as the inner child. And that is what Fred Rogers has taught me, and I can use that. Same in my personal work. Great example, I currently work with a wonderful young man with a very abusive mother. And he does great work during our sessions. We use a lot of music and imagery during our sessions. And in between sessions, what helps get him through is his book of Fred Rogers quotes that he reads. So I took a little break, decided to really dig into my inner Fred Rogers, and I developed a music therapy program in a preschool in Scarsdale, New York. Made me a little softer. I got to hug my patients for the first time. It was amazing. It was so great. And then I went back to psych, because psych just kept calling me back, and I went. Last year I was asked to speak at the New York State Capitol in Albany. And again, I called on Fred Rogers for inspiration. I watched those videos of him speaking in front of Congress and went, this is how you do it. You do it not because there's pressure on you. You do it because you are speaking to advocate for the people that you serve. And I went and I did it, and I got to wear a suit, which is so fun. I would wear a suit every day if I could. I probably wouldn't, because it was like a lot of steaming and ironing, but other than that, I had a blast. So I still take so much of Fred with me, and I just wanted to give you this little bit of background so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from today in this presentation. All right, so just so we can kind of appreciate how much training goes into being a music therapist, let's talk about the requirements. So the educational and professional requirements for music therapists, if I'm missing anything, shout it on. All right, cool. So it requires a minimum bachelor's degree, 1,200 hours of clinical work with a supervised internship at the end. You must pass the CBMT exam, the Certification Board for Music Therapist exams, and a master's degree in music therapy in New York is preferred. That's what is required to become a licensed creative arts therapist. We're gonna get into that a little bit more. So this is the creative arts therapy licensure. It's LCAT, stands for Licensed Creative Arts Therapist. You are required a master's degree in music, art, drama, or dance and movement therapy. There are 1,500 hours of supervised clinical work that are required, and licensed creative arts therapists are now legally considered psychotherapists in New York State, which is great. Gives us a lot more freedom to practice. So a quote from the New York State Department of Labor website says, creative arts therapists are trained in psychotherapy and in specific arts disciplines, which may include dance movement therapy, drama therapy, music therapy, poetry therapy, and art therapy. I actually only know one poetry therapist. She works at Rikers Island, which is pretty amazing. They have training in areas that include clinical practice and human development, as well as the use of the creative arts to provide appropriate services in multicultural and artistic traditions. So what is music psychotherapy? And also just to back step a little bit, that's a lot of training to be a creative arts therapist, right, or a music therapist. The fact that Johnny Costa and Fred Rogers, without any of this training, are able to work together to create some of the music and these music experiences on this show is pretty astounding. I mean, the music serves as part of the ecosystem on the show. So really, really impressive. So what's music psychotherapy? So if we're gonna define it as like simplest as we possibly can, it's psychotherapy with music is the main impetus for change, right? But Ken Bruscia kind of breaks it up into 3 categories. So music as psychotherapy. The therapeutic issue is accessed, worked through, and resolved through creating or listening to music with no need for verbal discourse. Northrop Robbins, right? Okay. Music-centered psychotherapy. The therapeutic issue is accessed, worked through, and resolved through creating or listening to music. Verbal discourse is used to guide, interpret, or enhance the music experience and its relevance to the client and therapeutic process. This is the last one I want you to pay extra close attention to. So the therapeutic issue is accessed, worked through, and resolved through both musical and verbal experiences, occurring either alternately or simultaneously. This is mostly what you're going to see on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That kind of verbal and music thing happening and marrying kind of at the same time. And that's what you're especially going to see in the clip that we look at today. In what areas do music therapists work? NICU, ICU, general medicine, geriatrics and memory care, neurodivergence, working with people maybe on the spectrum, and psychiatry, just to name a few. What are the modes of music therapy, and how can we connect them to the music on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? So improvisation, use of improvised music between patient and therapist or just the patient. A ton of the music on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is improvised. Yes, it's a lot of jazz. It's a lot of jazz. And who says kids don't like jazz? Most people say they don't like jazz. Most people are like, I've never listened to jazz in my life and I don't want to. Most people like jazz. They just like, they've watched Mr. Rogers, they like jazz. Recreative, taking a pre-existing song or composition and recreating it to express and process a presenting issue and client experience. We don't see a ton of this on the show, and when I was trying to go back and I'm like, what's recreative? I was thinking about the Marsalis family when they visited the neighborhood. Amazing family of jazz musicians, playing standards on the show, but kind of playing them in a way that kids could comprehend, that they're not so busy, that they're not super improvisation based. Composition, writing or composing a piece of music to express emotion and work through presenting issues. Fred Rogers did this all the time. He composed music that expressed emotion all the time. That's where all of these songs from the show come from. And receptive, listening to a piece of music. we are receiving the music that we hear on the show, right? It's a listening experience. What are some elements of music therapy? So reflecting mood with music, we're gonna see a lot of that and talk a lot about that today. Music as a supportive backdrop, music as communication, expressing empathy through music, and streamlining thoughts through music. So why is all of this important at the end of the day? So words are often not enough to process big feelings or traumatic events. I think we've all been there. You know, we tell someone that we're sorry for their loss and we go, there are no words, right? We have something terrible happen to us and we can't quite get the words together to talk about it. But music engages so many parts of the brain that those emotions can come out through our music in all of these different ways. Processing with language is not for everyone. There are people with language processing disorders. Talk psychotherapy or simply talking about emotions is not going to be the thing for them, and that's okay. That's why things like music therapy exist, thank goodness. Children on the autism spectrum are better able to identify facial emotional expression when it's paired with music that supports the mood that the face is trying to express. The Journal of Music Therapy produced a study about this, which is really compelling and really interesting. And again, music engages more parts of the brain than speech and language alone, so we're gonna get more stuff out of there. And also there's that deep music and memory connection in the brain. So we forget about certain events or traumas, and music can be the thing that kind of pulls out all the weeds and lets us shake all those feelings to the top. All right, now we're kind of getting into the main part of the presentation. So as I said before, we are going to be analyzing the music used to support the emotional processing involved on the show regarding the death of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. So to understand a little bit about why this was so important, what people were feeling at this time, we've got to talk a little bit about the person Bobby Kennedy was. So Robert F. Kennedy is born in 1925. He is the brother of President John F. Kennedy. So John F. Kennedy is elected president in 1960, and Bobby Kennedy is appointed Attorney General at only 35 years old. He talked a lot about the politics of hope, and in the 1960s, this was a very popular idea because we're in the middle of racial division and civil rights struggles, labor struggles, the Vietnam War. And this really appealed to voters from different walks of life, backgrounds, cultural identities, ethnicities. People really loved Robert F. Kennedy and they loved what he stood for. He was extremely, extremely charismatic. If you watch any of his interviews, if you watch his speeches, my husband and I listened to the Cape Town speech on the way here, on our drive here from Brooklyn, and it is extremely moving. I highly recommend you listen to it. It just gives you this sense of just, people don't talk like this anymore, and it's just so beautiful and eloquent and emotional. And people knew him as Bobby. His family knew him as Bobby. His friends knew him as Bobby. And voters referred to him as Bobby. And this created the sense of familiarity. Like you knew the guy, you loved the guy, and you wanted to support him. And a really charming thing about him, so one of my dad's relatives was a delegate for the DNC, and he received Christmas cards from Bobby Kennedy. He created a friendship with him. And he had 11 kids. And to see these Christmas cards with these kids and all their dogs, it's charming. You really get a feel for who the guy was. All right, so in 1968, Robert F. Kennedy is unfortunately assassinated. So to give you a little bit of context, he wins the California and the South Dakota primaries, and this means that he is the Democratic candidate for president. So he has reached the top of the mountain so far. He's on the way to that presidency. And people are fairly confident he's going to be president if he gets the candidacy. He decided to address supporters at the Embassy Ballroom at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles on June 5th, 1968. So he accepts the Democratic nomination, and he is shot after he speaks as he's exiting the ballroom, and he passes away the next day at Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles, California. it's really important to remember a couple of things. Ethel Kennedy, his wife, is pregnant with their 11th child. A lot of trauma for these kids. Second, this is the 4th in a string of significant political assassinations in the 1960s. We have President John F. Kennedy in 1963 in Dallas, Malcolm X in 1965 in Harlem. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is assassinated in April 1968, and 2 months later, almost to the day, Bobby Kennedy is assassinated in Los Angeles. This creates a pressure cooker of tension, sadness, grief, anxiety, fear in the United States. And this almost feels like a redoing of Dallas. People lost the president that they loved, his brother steps in to save the day, and they lose him too. Let's talk about the funeral train. Anyone familiar with the funeral train? Yeah. So there's an excellent book called RFK Funeral Train by Paul Fusco, who was an American photographer. Robert Kennedy's body is carried by train from New York to Washington, D.C., and he's buried at Arlington National Cemetery. People lined the entire train route to say goodbye. And these pictures are so deeply emotional, and a lot of them depict families with children. These are people who live in major cities. These are people who live in the middle of the country. These are people of all different backgrounds who are devastated. Preparing for this presentation, I had the privilege of talking to some folks who were kids at the time that Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, because I wanted to understand, why was it so important for Fred Rogers to talk to children about this? How were kids feeling at this time? One of the people I spoke to said our dad had been up all night watching TV. This was not a common occurrence in their house. The TV was only on for like Ed Sullivan, he said. But his dad was up all night watching television and told them the next morning what had happened. Another person who wrote me by email said, my specific memory of the assassination was of the photos of him on the floor of the hotel after he'd been shot. Disturbing. Another person wrote to me and said, asleep in my bed, I woke up and for some mysterious reason, I turned on the radio. I cried all night. So this was really, really heavy for kids. And this was really heavy because kids were watching their parents unravel. And when kids see their parents unravel, they pick up on that. They empathize. That is a really hard thing to see the people who have it all together really struggle. So this is how we're gonna start with our musical analysis. We're gonna watch this video. It's about 2.5 minutes to maybe 3 minutes. And I just want you to watch it, and I want you to take a little note of what you notice, all right? To give some context about this episode, this aired on June 7th, 1968. So this was really a pretty rushed episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It happened the day after Robert F. Kennedy passed away. He dedicated an entire episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to discussing the Robert F. Kennedy assassination. In doing so, he became the first children's television host to discuss assassination. The clip we're about to watch was followed by a discussion addressing parents about how to discuss the tragedy with their children. Another really important thing to remember about this is that the show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, is 4 months old at this point. It had aired 4 months before this. That is courageous. That is how we show up for kids and families. When your show is brand new and you decide to go into the weeds of talking about something as controversial as a political assassination, that is how you show up for people. It is just amazing. So we're gonna watch this. Just keep tabs on how you're feeling, what you notice about the music, what you notice about maybe the silence, because silence is a really important part of music too.
Blow all your air out. Then you won't have any left, just like the balloon.
But people aren't like balloons, Daniel. When we blow air out, we get some more back in. Watch. I'll blow air out.
Oh. Oh. What does assassination mean?
Have you heard that word a lot today?
Yes. And I didn't know what it meant.
Well, it means somebody getting killed in a sort of surprise way.
That's what happened, you know. That man killed that other man.
I know, and a lot of people are talking about it right now.
Too many people are talking about it.
A lot of people are sad and scared about it, you know.
I'd rather talk about it some other day.
Whenever you like. Did you know that X and Lady Elaine are going to have a picnic today? Would you like to come?
I don't feel too much like a picnic today.
I can understand that. When you feel sad, sometimes you don't feel like a picnic.
I'll just stay here with my balloon.
But I need to go, Daniel. Because X and Lady Elaine are expecting me, and if I don't come, they might get scared. But it won't be a very long picnic. Will you be right here when I get back?
Oh, sure, I'll be staying close to home.
Oh, good, then I'll meet you here.
Good.
Here's your balloon.
Thank you. My balloon.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Ugga mugga.
Ugga mugga. Thanks for blowing up my balloon.
Bye, Daniel.
Have a good picnic.
Thank you.
All right. So, if you would like, turn to someone next to you and ponder these questions. So what did you notice about the music? How did the music reflect emotion? And how was silence utilized? And then we'll come back as a group and discuss in a couple of minutes. Great.
Felt the change happen a little bit when she had the conversation was more serious, but it wasn't like, you know, like it didn't make it serious, it was over like it wasn't, I think she'll probably be
I did.
Let's focus on breathing first, so we can now be in a place to have a conversation. It's not being I think with somebody that's, I watched it, that's what I fall back on. I was feeling the conversation.
All right, just start wrapping up your conversations and we're gonna discuss as a group. Right, cool. Sounds like a lot of good conversation. Awesome, cool. So let's start with the first question. What did we notice about the music? Just shout it on out, that's fine. Yeah.
Gentle.
Very gentle, soothing, yeah.
I thought it was ethereal and like fluid, and I thought it was interesting that she started talking about breath and how we have breath and then we don't have breath, or it goes in and out, and thinking of setting up what that means for humans who aren't like balloons, who need to take in and out, and the setup of how that would talk about loss.
Yeah, and something that I think of too when that's going on too, in addition to the loss, of how grounding it is to take deep breaths.
Yeah.
And almost encouraging, we're gonna have a really hard conversation, let's take a deep breath,
And
right?
the abruptness of the question and the stop.
Yeah.
And the silence, and then, so that was really.
For me, it felt like the music was the safety net, so once the conversation became a little bit too much, the breath in was the silence I couldn't. So that music was the breath in to be able to say, okay, now we can keep talking, I just need a second.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
The music also didn't seem to have like a clear destination. It wasn't, like you weren't hearing momentum and movement, it was just sort of containing more.
Sure.
Just, yeah, like sort of just holding the presence.
Yeah, and grief doesn't have a destination either,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a beautiful thing to notice. Yeah, anything else?
It was familiar because it sounded like the trolley.
Yeah, that toy piano sound that we associate with the trolley. Yeah, perfect.
I thought the like individual higher notes felt very delicate, and like it was delicate both for Daniel to ask the question and like, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this question, and it seemed like she also didn't know how I can answer the question, or like, so it all felt very like tentative or delicate.
Yeah, absolutely.
It also was really quiet and in the background. Like, I think if we hadn't been asked to listen to the music, we might not have noticed it.
Yeah, that's something I love about this clip too, is the subtlety of it. And I, believe in all of you so much that I chose such a subtle clip, and I need all of your keen ears to really, piece out what's happening. But yeah, that's a very good point. If you weren't asked to listen to the music, you probably want it, which is what kind of makes it a support, right? Yeah.
I was asked to listen to the music and I totally didn't hear it.
Okay, we're gonna listen to it again. We're gonna listen to it 2 more times, so you're in good shape. Yeah. All right, because the conversation's so heavy, right? It's just,
It's entrancing.
whoa, yeah. All right, so we're gonna listen to this one more time. We're gonna watch it one more time. And this time I'm gonna stop it along the way. I have little timestamps with some notes I made. So I'm gonna tell you my thoughts, but I also want you to please, pitch in anything that you're thinking or feeling.
All your air out. Then you won't have any left. Just like the balloon.
But people aren't like balloons, Daniel. When we blow air out, we get some more back in. Watch. I'll blow air out.
stop it right here. So something I notice about this is that the music moves from this dream sequency type feel, right? And this contributes to the sense of the surreal of this huge loss, right? 1 second, kids are watching television with their parents, and the strong, young, capable Bobby Kennedy is up speaking at a podium. And then, just as this one now adult told me about being a child, he had to look at those pictures of him lying on the ground in that ballroom. There is something so surreal about that. There's something so surreal about death and loss, right? So that dream sequence really supports that. And then we shift into the minor key as soon as the breath goes, or the major key as soon as the breath goes into the balloon. So this kind of creates the sense of positive reinforcement, right? We think of the major key as, you know, with positive feelings, happiness, joy. It supports the idea too, gives this positive reinforcement to the idea that people are not like balloons, and it provides a sense of comfort and security for a curious and anxious Daniel Tiger. It also reflects the nurturing and positive presence of Lady Aberlane. Anything else we notice up until this point?
The volume changed.
Yep, we have a little bit of increase in dynamic for sure, yeah. Anything else? All right, keep going.
What does assassination mean?
All right, we're gonna pause it right here again. That space is filled with just 3 notes. It's not a grand musical phrase, not a grand gesture, not a silencing of don't ask that question. There's no using music to take over the space, but just these 3 lingering notes to make the discomfort of the silence feel slightly less less uncomfortable, sorry. To make the silence feel slightly less uncomfortable, but to almost serve as a reiteration of that question mark. Yeah. Anything else we notice there?
And the 3 notes go up the scale.
Yep, they're ascending.
A new
Yeah.
idea, new thoughts.
Yeah, it feels like a light bulb going off a little bit. Yeah, I love that.
I felt like it accentuated it a little bit,
Mhm.
right? Like, this is important.
Yes.
And not to dismiss it or.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like also the phrase ends sort of without resolution, in the same way that the question doesn't exactly have the answer.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
They're also like bright little notes. They're not like you know, it's an innocent question.
Yeah.
The music reflects the innocence of the question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I
Oh,
also
sorry.
think those notes like gave us permission to also feel like,
Have you heard that
Oh, I'm so
word
sorry.
adopted?
Sorry. I thought I.
no, I think those notes gave like us permission to say like, oh,
Mm.
that was like, whoa, that was a heavy question, but in an approachable way to say, wow, that was a really heavy moment. I think in the whole piece, like music carries, it's a carrier for a heavy discussion. Like,
I agree.
And I didn't know what it meant.
Will, it means somebody getting killed in a sort of surprise way.
That's what happened, you know. That man killed that other man.
I know, and a lot of people are talking about it right now.
Too many people are talking about it.
A lot of
All right. So the spaces in this conversation are filled with motifs which have now switched into a minor key. This reflects the feelings of fear and sadness. The only time, if you notice, that space is not filled is when Daniel Tiger says, too many people are talking about it. He is ready for a little bit of a break. He needs some quiet, and the music, and in the music, his need for space and silence is honored, and that sets an example for the respect one is owed when struggling with grief, tragedy, and loss. Any other thoughts there?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the music, is it added in post-production? Is it happening live? Like,
That's a great question. I don't exactly know, but because it feels so improvisational, it's happening live.
Until he passed away, he was live in every single episode. And actually, the beginning is slightly different every single time. He adds like a little piece of thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, so then that means that the news, like, he's improvising with the conversation.
Mhm.
And that, I was feeling that just like even in the
Yeah.
first watch, like, this is a conversation that includes the music.
That's what
Yeah.
I said, I thought it was a third person in the conversation.
Yeah, I say a lot too. The music on the show feels like part of the ecosystem. I mean, it's just, the show would not be the show without music, but as you were saying earlier too, it's sometimes so subtle that we don't always notice it, right? Yeah, you were going to say?
I was gonna say, you can't rehearse that.
No.
You can't say, well, first of all, we already know that this episode was literally the next day after he passed away, 2
Sure.
days after the incident. But even if they were doing some other topic that was something that doesn't have a time frame, like death of a pet, death of a parent, whatever, you know, I don't think that Fred Rogers and Johnny Costa ever sat down and said, this is the music I want you to play when I say this, and this is the music I want you to play when I think just the two of them, and it's already evident here, like you said, it was only 4 months into production,
Yeah.
but I think that they just had that relationship and that awareness of their purpose.
Yeah.
That they were just able to mesh, like so many things that we're noticing are brilliant.
Sure.
It's not by accident, but you can't rehearse that.
And I'm so glad you're bringing that up, because that's sort of like the music therapy of it all. Is that a music therapist does not go into a session and go, I'm gonna do this here, and then I'm gonna do this here, and then I think I'm gonna do this, because we don't know what a patient is going to do or say in the session. So that is really where all of this magic sort of happens and why they feel like music therapists.
It's also the improvisational juxtaposition of it all too,
Yeah.
because I think that part of the rehearsal is just their relationship ongoing.
Yes.
And the encounters that they had probably in life.
Mhm.
And so then that allows you to show up live and do something like this.
Agreed, yeah.
I'm picturing them sitting there at their pianos right now and just feeling the conversation, right? And just those like touch of a key and then maybe another touch of it. Just, I'm sorry, I have a whole visual in my head right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you shared that, yeah.
Like-
They're sort of like the Lennon and McCartney of children's television.
Yeah.
It's just really amazing.
Even
All right.
better.
Yeah, oh, sure, well, someone argued, but I agree.
In my humble opinion.
Scared about it, you know.
I'd rather talk about it some other day.
Whenever you like. Did you know that X and Lady Elaine are going to have a picnic today? Would you like to come?
I don't feel too much like a picnic today.
I can understand that. When you feel sad, sometimes you don't feel like a picnic.
So notice here, we've gone back to that major key. It's a lot more comfortable, it's more comforting. And we're returning to it just as Daniel is saying, I can't do a picnic today. Lady Aberlin wants to go out, she needs to be with people, she needs to grieve with others, Daniel needs to grieve by himself. This major key gives this positive feeling that we can grieve however we need to grieve. And it also kind of supports this idea that they're respecting the very different ways that they're each coping with the same loss. Any other thoughts from this section? Yeah.
I think too that she gives him, I want to use the word permission or whatever, but he's reassured that when he needs to talk about it again,
Yeah.
that she's gonna be open to that.
Absolutely, sure.
It's my balloon.
But I need to go, Daniel. Because X and Lady Elaine are expecting me, and if I don't come, they might get scared. But it won't be a very long picnic. Will you be right here when I get back?
Oh, sure.
Did we hear those ascending notes? Yeah, those notes that go up. Creates a sense of uncertainty and anticipation. Reflects what a Lady Aberlin thinks or imagines that X and Lady Elaine might be feeling if she doesn't make it to the picnic. In a broader sense, it reflects a general sense of uncertainty, anticipation, and fear felt across the country. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to play it till the end.
Good, then I'll meet you here.
Good.
Here's your balloon.
Thank you. My
And
balloon.
Daniel,
Yeah.
Ugga mugga.
Ugga mugga. Thanks for blowing up my balloon.
Bye, Daniel.
Have a good picnic.
Thank you.
All right, love this part so much because it switches into a pentatonic scale for the first time in the entire video. So a pentatonic scale consists of 5 notes, as opposed to the regular major minor scale, which consists of 8 notes. So we're presenting a scale with less notes, less complexity. We are adding just a touch of simplicity to an extremely complex situation. Also, we hear the pentatonic scale come up a lot in the popular music of the 60s. A lot of rock guitar solos are built around the pentatonic scale. So if we're thinking, what is popular in 1968? The Stones, the Beatles, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin's about to release their first album, woohoo! A lot of cool stuff happening at that time in rock music, and we're hearing that pentatonic scale. So even if you're not actively listening to it, it's in the collective consciousness, the musical collective consciousness of Americans. Any other thoughts there? All right. Oh, yeah, please.
I mean, it was like all going up, and it was just like a lovely resolution. And this moment is ending, where we've resolved it as much as we can for this moment, and it was just like a closure, like a sense of closure.
Yeah. So let's kind of go into, oh, please, yes, thank you.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I agree, I love the new part, but even though it ends with the, there's another note that says we might continue this conversation later.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Really good
For
noticing.
reassuring here, she'll be back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. All right, so let's, just for the sake of time, I thought I was gonna be up here and then only have like, what the keynote said too, I thought I was gonna be like 10 minutes in and then we'd all stare at each other for the rest of the time. So I'm really glad that we're nearing the end of our time and that we filled up the time, awesome. So let's just discuss as a group, how can music be used in your own life and work? Music therapist or not? Yeah.
I just feel like I always have music on in the background, always when I'm driving, always when I'm home cleaning, and then when I'm caring for children, I nanny for 3 children in their home, and I usually have music on in the background. Sometimes it's their choice, sometimes it's my choice, sometimes we combine, and of course with technology, we call Alexa Ms. A, because if I refer to her
Yeah.
in like conversation, it will start talking. So I say, do you want to ask Ms. A that question, or do you want to ask Ms. A, you can ask her the next song. But just, I feel like, and it does, like on a Friday morning when we're upbeat, we play upbeat songs. On a Monday morning, it's more gentle. So we definitely like to play music while we're just doing other things, because just having that background is just, to me, comforting, and it's just part of what I do.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I have a Spotify playlist around feelings, so I'll have like a sadness and grief Spotify playlist, or I'll have angry feelings, or nostalgia, which is one of my favorite feelings to feel.
Amazing, I love that.
I'm a social emotional teacher, pre-K through 2, and we use it. I sing and please have a seat in a mindful body, but I sing it as they come in, and then we reinforce some of the messages that we've read in a book through song.
Yeah, I love that.
It works.
For me, I kind of I have a selection with, like, it's almost like my armor. If I'm going into a tough situation, or if I'm going in something, and, if there's words, there's usually affirmation, so I feel like a warrior, and I'm walking, and I have my and I'm looking at the world going around like you have your own theme music, and I, you know, this is like, I got this,
Yeah.
you know, or I don't got this,
Mhm.
you know, so I use it as another piece of who I am, another layer of my truth in that moment, and it centers me in my truth, and it's like a permission slip, like you say, it's like, so I use it sometimes to be strong for me when I can't be strong,
Sure.
and to help me feel when I don't know what I'm feeling. So I just kind of know that helps, you know.
Yeah.
And it changes my tempo sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
With the children too, like if you have instruments, like they can use them to express their feelings. Like if I'm mad, I can shake those maracas or I can pound on the drum. And if I'm feeling sad, I might play softer. So they can use it themselves to work through some of their emotions, their big emotions.
I think there's a certain musicality to silence as well. Like if you, when you know we were listening to those clips, it wasn't silent for long, but there were those pauses. If you listen to certain, you know, classical pieces, sometimes you're like, wait, is the radio on? Is it tuned? Like, is it tuned in? Because it goes so almost silent.
Yeah.
And I think noticing that and also, you know, being present in that silence to help you take that breath or take that pause or connect with whatever it is that you're feeling at that. So I think that there's power in that silence as well.
Yeah.
I'm an adopted mom now, but when I was a foster mom, when kids came to us, there was not very many things that they can hold on to as theirs, as they're in transition from wherever they're coming or going. So last names don't stay, and the definition of family is really fluid. So my husband and I found music to be the one mainstay where we could give them something, it was theirs and it could travel with them. And so then we adopted our daughters, our twins. Actually, that song that we developed with them during foster care is now our family song. And so it's just, we call them our peanuts, but it's a call and response that we deal with all of our foster children. So I would just say tiny little, and they all say peanuts. And like it's a call and response song that's now like our family song, but like it is theirs before last names were solidified, before addresses were solidified. So we found music to be a great connector during our foster care journey, but has been super powerful as we adopted our girls.
That is beautiful. Congratulations. Yeah. I attended a great workshop at a music therapy conference once about anthem writing for families, for people who are institutionalized, for people living in nursing homes, and I love seeing someone using this idea out in the world. Yeah.
I like that some of my friends and I, fellow expressive arts therapist, I'm an art therapist, and one of my best friends and co-business owner is a drama therapist, and we just have like, sometimes we just do process songs, so that's really just like things you need to talk about, but you can make it songs because that's more fun, it's easier, so they're all, you know, I would say it doesn't become an anthem necessarily, but it is sort of like, okay, we're gonna sing this conversation.
Yes. Yeah. I think we did a pretty good job at answering the second question too. We were getting a little bit out of time, so I want to move forward. Before we get to questions and discussion, actually, I want to loop it back around to music therapy for a second. So hopefully kind of seeing these elements of music therapy being used in this way, and hopefully by seeing a music therapist present, you've maybe become a little bit more curious about music therapy. And I think music therapy advocacy is something really important. So whenever I present, I like to add just kind of some action steps for advocacy. So working together with music therapists if you're in a helping profession, engaging in conversations about the benefits of music therapy, treating and speaking about music therapy as a form of therapy and an important part of a medical or psychiatric or education treatment, getting involved in policies that impact music therapists and creative arts therapists, advocating for fair, higher pay for creative arts therapists, remembering that creative arts therapists are trained and licensed psychotherapists, and connect with creative arts therapists and ask them questions. We love questions. I love questions. I can't speak for everyone, but yeah, we would rather have you ask what we do than assume, right? Some suggested resources if you're interested in music therapy. Music Psychotherapy by Ken Bruce is a great read. Breakthroughs with Music Therapy, which you can find if you just search that, you can find it on YouTube. I have a brain and music spreadsheet. If you would like it, I can send that to you. Music Therapy Handbook by Barbara Wheeler, and Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks. It's just brilliant. This is all of my information. If you would like to keep the conversation going, have additional questions, want to stay in touch, please send me an email or text. Happy with either. And
Is that how we request the spreadsheet?
yes, absolutely.
Can you go back to the resource one real quick?
Yes, absolutely. Once people get this down, I will. Yep. Are we ready for the resources one more time? And before we get into our questions and discussion, I just want to acknowledge, even though they're not here, the people who were so vulnerable in speaking to me about their experiences at the time of the Robert F. Kennedy assassination. Grateful to all of you for being here, and super grateful to my husband, Jamie, who is here with me today. Jamie is a Jamie is a psychotherapist. He is also the author of a really compelling book of poems about the JFK assassination called Limousine Midnight Blue, and it really exemplifies the use of the arts to process really difficult things. He was a great resource to me while I was putting together this presentation. He knows a lot about the Kennedys, and he set such a great example through writing this book of poems for kind of how to approach the subject through an arts lens. So very grateful to him. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Any questions?
We talked so much.
We did. We were. I love.
As we went.
I love a chatty group. You were like my dream group. So thank you. Thank you so much. We are right at time. I don't want to keep anyone from getting anything good to eat. I'll be here for a couple minutes to chit chat. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.